Vicha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Om Gyantirmandasya Militam Yena Tashmai Shiguru Namaha Adapi Sunichina Tarora Pisa Hishnuna Amani Namanadina Kitni Sra Hari Anya Barasta Sunyam Gyan Kamadhyana Vritam Anukelenya Krishna Bhakti Uttama Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, and welcome my beautiful devotee family to our day 14. Day 14 of this beautiful Kartik Parikram, this month which bestows thousands of times that we connect to Krishna's beautiful Leela and purify ourselves or be purified. It's an opportunity for all of us, and I want to thank everybody for participating in this seva, because your Shravan is helping. We're all serving. It's a very sweet seva. Yesterday, Maharaj indicated that from Vrindavan to Govardhan today, and he was indicating how Govardhan is even softer and sweeter than the. It's more, it's less good actually than in Vrindavan. A softer breeze blows there. So he's expanded today of Govardhan. So I'm so happy to our beloved Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tridandi Maharaj, who has very kindly given us 2 days of his Katha every Thursday and Friday. Tomorrow we'll be back to the normal time of 6 p.m. when Sripad Bhagavat Maharaj will be zooming in from the United States. And please, as usual, send me your questions. Tell me if you want Maharaj questions, so don't be shy. Haribol, Dandavats Maharaj.
Dandavats Yashoda, Dandavats to everyone. Om Aginati Mirandasya Gyananjalakaya Chakshu Unmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guruve Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Bhaktya Vihina Aparara Lakshay Chakarmari Tarangamariye Karanam Prapana Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Rami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tatoma Manasti Katyana Chapi. I first of all offer millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev Nitya Leela Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Leela Prabhishta Om Asto Tarasara Shishimad Srila Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada, and all our Rupanuga Guru Vargya, and all the Vaishnav and Vaishnavi devotees who are listening in today on our thread, my Dandavat pranams to all of you. So as Yashoda Prabhu mentioned, yesterday we left Vrindavan in our parikrama, virtual parikrama movements. We came from Vrindavan to Giriraj Govardhan. And this is a huge shift If you've been on our parikramas, you remember how the hustle and bustle intensity of Govardhan is only open up space in Govardhan. There's many people come to Govardhan, but they don't usually stay for a long time. Usually they just perform the parikrama for 2 or 3 or 4 days, then they leave. Actually, the infrastructure of Govardhan is, you stay there for some time, is so minimal. All they have is like a few milk shops and sweet shops, etc. If you want to get a pair of spectacles even, or anything electronic, you have to go to Mathura. That it hasn't built up that kind of city-like atmosphere that Vrindavan has. It kept identity as a very countrified, local place. The atmosphere is very much more peaceful, especially if we're coming to stay for some time, rather than the intense congestion of Vrindavan itself. That's just like externally. What to speak of the spiritual flavor that surrounds Giriraj Govardhan. It's described that as long as Giriraj Govardhan is visible, Kali Maharaj cannot enter the precinct of Giriraj Govardhan. He can't come in. That's why Govardhan is such a simple city, and not a city, rather, just a town. And all the little villages around, none of them, even though they have millions and millions, literally millions of tourists come every year. When we see Guru Purnima, for example, the police, they have to fence off, and literally hundreds and even thousands of busloads or tractor trailers filled with people come. So it really, becomes populated. And nevertheless, the villages, they have responded in a material way to this. Any of the villages we go to, tiny, tiny little grocery shops, etc. So this is after many hundreds, even thousands of years of people visiting. So this indicates the truth that Kali Maharaj is not, is not allowed entrance into Giriraj. So immediately this conviction of the sanctity of this place where we've arrived. And Giriraj himself is always in a festive mood. There's always 24/7 music, kirtan, singing going on somewhere in, if you're not used to that. But it's always going on, which is very, there's just a wonderful atmosphere. So on the first day, we start to do the parikrama, which I displayed in audio, but there were a couple of extra points that I wanted to touch on. Or principally, perhaps we should just consider Govardhan, Giriraj Govardhan himself for a few moments. So there's one beautiful invocational mantra that we can chant. Namaste Giriraj Shri Govardhan. So this, what is his name? This Giriraj. Who is this king of mountains? Giriraj. His name is Govardhan. That's the first line. Namaste Girirajaya Shri Govardhan. Name is Govardhan. Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Paramananda Dayate. So this is the Dayane. This is the mantra. Very simple mantra. So Ashesha Klesha Nashaya. Giriraj will make our one. And two, he will give us this Paramananda Dayane. He will give us prem. So that's a pretty good deal. We get our suffering taken away and we get Paramananda. So Namaste Giriraj Shri Govardhan Namine Ashesha Klesha Nashaya Dayane. Very simple mantra. We can perhaps, when we're staying there, commit this mantra to memory. And then there's a most beautiful mantra. These mantras, they contain the seeds, the root, the moods that we can accept in our meditation, in our contemplation of the speciality of Giriraj, this personality that we've come to stay with for practically 2 weeks, a little bit more than that. So we need to close ourselves in Venugit. Venugit is chapter 21 of the 10th canto. It comes just after the description of the rainy season. It comes just after all of Krishna are practically of the 10th canto. We're coming into much more intimate pastimes between Radha and Krishna and the gopis. It's building up to the 20th, 31st, 32nd, 30th, this Rasa Panchadiya. So this Venugit comes after the rainy season, and it scrolls through many descriptions of the different personalities that are affected by Krishna's flute, because the gopis are all sitting in their homes. And we've been discussed in the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the first opening that Shukadev Goswami is giving the reader or the listener into real Braj. Real Braj means of the gopis. This is the only we're really going to get or come closer to Vrindavan, to Braj, certainly to Giriraj. So the gopis, they glorify the peacocks, they glorify the deer, they glorify initially Krishna's flute. They glorify Krishna's flute in a mood of envy, it would seem, Rishya, which is actually it's like a vyabhachari bhav. How can you feel envious of their love-conditioned consciousnesses? Our feeling that the flute has stolen their property of Krishna's lips away from them. So this is their mood. It's very intoxicating. This is from the 10th canto. So we're leading into an appreciation of Giriraj Govardhan. And then it's going through the description of the demigods, the cows, the birds, the rivers, the clouds, the Pulindas, the tribes, women. And then we come in this 18th verse that is sung in Venugit, describing Giriraj Govardhan. Antarya Balahaya Yan Ram Krishna Chanparla Manum Tanoti Sahagoganayas Tayoyat Panyas Suryavas Kandare Kandare Mula. So this verse is chanted by the Brajadevis. In fact, Giriraj is that Haridas Abad, servant of Krishna. So they must go to Giriraj and petition him to give him their mercy, to quickly come. Now I want to read a little bit today. I want to principally focus on Giriraj and on the qualities of his qualities and how special he is. So Srila Gurudev writes in the Venugit, if you have a copy there, you can, on page 161, I'm reading here. In this way, the goddesses of Braj, the Brajadevis, are to be born as a blade of grass, a creeper, a tree, or any other similar life form, as they are denying all the symptoms of Mahabhav. Great glories of Giriraj start to manifest in their hearts. So if we are in Anugatya, we are in Anugatya of Braj. So we are appreciating these bhavs that are arising in the gopis' hearts in relation to Giriraj, because on the audio, so many of the actual locations, and we've been many times, perhaps the devotees, to the locations themselves, but now it's more in on the exalted nature of Giriraj himself or herself. So they therefore say, Hantarya Madira Bala Haridasavaria. No desires can be fulfilled without taking shelter of great personalities and serving them. He heard the glories of Govardhan Hill from the saintly Purnamasiji. Come, let us take bath in Manasaganga and circumambulate Govardhan of his presiding deity, Sri Haridev. Worship him. Our lifelong desires, which are so difficult to achieve, will be fulfilled by doing this. So Gurudev has said repeatedly, be very of God kind of desire that comes in your heart. Krishna is ready. He's walking behind us. He's so pleased to, in this Kali Yuga, with difficulties and short lives and bad health and so many negative things are present, but yet we've managed to all those and actually come to this sacred place of Govardhan. It's appreciated by Haridev. It's appreciated by Krishna directly. And then Gurudev continues, this humility of the gopis is natural and for their human-like pastimes, Naralila. But for sadhaks, this subject has a special message. Someone wants to achieve filled service of the divine couple, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, in transcendental Vrindavan. The only way is to take the association to lotus feet of devotees who relish the sweetness of Braj, the Rasik Braja Bhaktas. That is why Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, he says in his Sri Sankalpa Prakash, he says, without taking shelter of the dust of the lotus feet of the Mahabhav Swarup, Sri Radha, every form is made of the highest sentiments of love and of Vrindavan is adorned with the dust of lotus feet, and without hearing nectar-filled narrations from the mouths of Rasik devotees of Braj, it is not possible to dive into the boundless ocean of love for Sham Sundara. This is very contemplation. So in our places of performing our chanting, etc., if we come in touch with these verses and start to remember the flavor and speciality have experienced with our conditioned consciousnesses initially, well, it has to go through the ages to come into a deeper consideration within the heart. So then Srila Gurudev continues. He's described in 22, verse 51. He says, without the mercy, there is no way to end service. One cannot achieve Krishna Bhakti or even be released from material existence. So by coming here to Govardhan, we have the possibility to release us from this material, these material desires, and how actually we can't get rid of the material desires, but what we can do is put our spiritual goals in front of those desires. When we eliminate the negative aspects, we're trying to acquire positive aspects, and negative aspects will go away. Srila Gurudev used to give us an analogy of a pot, a clay water pot. How do you get the air out of a pot? In other words, you get out of our consciousnesses by putting something into it. If you fill a pot up with water, all the air is going out. Similarly, if we fill our consciousnesses with thoughts of Braj, of Giriraj, of the gopis, more than just them, but that we're contemplating an Bar touched on this beautiful verse by Rupa Goswami describing the three stages of bhakti: sadhana bhakti, bhav bhakti, and prema bhakti. If our sadhana is not bhav bhakti, our sadhana is practically using around. It doesn't really have any significance. But if we're genuinely focused on how can I achieve that bhav, that mood, that flavor, that resides in every single heart, it's there. Kriti sadhya bhavet sadhya bhav satanabhida bhavasya prakritam kriti sadhyate. In every single heart, this option, this opportunity, this potential is residing. So to focus on the bhav. So how do the gopis view Giriraj Govardhan? And this is all described in this beautiful 8th of the Venu Gita. Gurudev is describing very beautifully. By the way, in this Venu Gita, if you get an opportunity to read, the introduction is staggering. The introduction is actually monumental. It really discusses that we must focus on these topics as a priority to spell the lower topics in the heart. This is what I've already intimated. So I think Raghava has just given us access in a link. This speaking a little bit here. The Braj-Ramanis, overwhelmed in prayer about the glory of Giriraj, Osaki, Giriraj Govardhan is Haridasa Varya. Avarya means the topmost servant. In the entire universe, there are many kinds of Haridas, but out of all of them, Giriraj Govardhan is indeed the great. Do we believe in the authority of the gopis? The gopis are manifesting directly view body of the gopis presenting Sri Radhika. And these gopis are proclaiming that Haridas Avarya is the not Das. And Gurudev goes on to describe this, these two personalities here in his commentary. He's describing that in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are three great personalities have been called Haridas: Maharaj Yudhishthira, Sri Uddhav, and Giriraj Govardhan. So Maharaj Yudhishthira is described as being a Prem Para Bhakta in the ladder, we can say, of Bhakti that Sanatana Goswami has given us in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. The first or the lowest position is that of Prahlad as a Jnani Bhakta. And then it goes to a Shuddha Bhakta, who is Ambarish Maharaj. And then it goes to Hanumanji, who is a Premi Bhakta. And then it goes to the Pandavas, who are considered Prem Para Bhaktas. They are above even Hanuman. And so their relationship with Krishna is extraordinary. They're Krishna's cousin. They're his physical family member. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, he employs Krishna even as a messenger. And he, where is it? There's a whole list here of all these activities that Yudhishthira Maharaj is demonstrating his absolute intimacy with Krishna as a messenger, as a friend, a brother, a cousin, a guru, a charioteer, a servant who follows your every order. So Krishna is acting like this with Maharaj Yudhisthira, yet he is not the topmost Haridasa Varya. I'm going briefly here through. You can catch the thread and you can look at this yourselves later. And then Gurudev begins to talk about Sri Uddhav, who is such a bosom friend of Sri Krishna. It's described that Uddhav was the most personal person to be sent to Vrindavan to pacify his mother and father and the gopis. Such an intimate service was bestowed upon Uddhav, and he remained in Braj for several months, absorbed in the Brijvasis and getting to know their moods, etc. So what sort of Uddhav is described as Krishna's most beloved bosom friend. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, 46th chapter. It's saying, Parikshit, the highly intelligent and respected Uddhav, this is Shukadev Goswami speaking, was a prominent member of the Vrishni dynasty and the direct disciple of Brihaspati. He was Krishna's prime minister and dear bosom friend. What greater glories than these can be attributed to him? This is Uddhav. So by hearing about the glories of Yudhisthira and Uddhav, and then to hear how Giriraj Govardhan eclipses these two, and he is the one in the gopis' estimation who deserves the full title of Haridas Avarya, because he gives his entire body to Krishna. Originally, it's interesting to note that Giriraj Govardhan was 64 miles in length. He was 5 yojans, or 40 miles wide, and he was 2 yojans high. That's 16 miles high originally. But then due to the arrangement of the curse by Pulastya Rishi, he's been sinking gradually to come to a very comfortable size for Krishna's incredible pastimes on his back. And now, during Krishna's time, it's described that Giriraj is about 2 miles high. That is still a really, really high mountain. Mount Everest is 29,000 feet. How much of a mile is that? Is there a mathematician there? 29,000 feet is the height of Mount Everest today. So where is 2 miles? So 2 miles
Everest
is
about 6 miles, Marsh.
6 miles. Okay, 6 miles, 29,000 feet.
1,600 yards in a mile, and it's 29,000, you say?
It's 8,800 meters.
Yeah, so that's,
Anyway.
that's about 9 kilometers, so about 6 miles, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So in comparison to Mount Everest, Govardhan is actually very high, because Krishna would play incredible games with the Sakhas in particular. They would go right to the top, and it would be like a very sort of lonely top of a mountain type atmosphere, and they would play hide and seek, etc., and all kinds of incredible games that young boys relish. So all these activities, and there would be many, many secret caves and so on, where the cowherd boys and, of course, the Sakhis would enjoy the most confidential pastimes with Krishna. And this brings us to another point that I just want to mention briefly here, that Gurudev has proclaimed only once, and it's interesting to appreciate that there's only once he mentioned it publicly, how you can view Giriraj as Girirani. And this was during the parikrama. It was actually a Navadvip parikrama, and we didn't go to Navadvip that year. We stayed in Govardhan because there was some problem with the changeover of the temple, etc. And Gurudev didn't want to go to Navadvip that Goramandal time. We stayed in Govardhan. And at that time, he described you can view Giriraj or worship Giriraj in three different ways. You can worship him as Bhagavan. This is the Bhagavan who takes all of the offerings of that Anakut. When Krishna convinced the Brijabasis to worship Giriraj instead of Indra, and Bhagavan Giriraj manifests and takes all those offerings, all those lakes filled with sweet rice, etc. He takes the whole offering. He exhibits his Bhagavan form. So we can worship him as God in a mood of Aishwarya, or we can worship him as Haridasavarya. We can worship him as the greatest devotee of Krishna. Haridasavarya means Krishna's greatest devotee. So we can worship him in that mood as a servant of Krishna. Or the third option is that we can worship him as Giri Rani. And the way at this particular occasion where Gurudev explained it, he said, how could there possibly be another male in the secret caves where Krishna was performing his pastime with the gopis? He is the only Purush. How could there be another male in the caves at the same time? There can only be one male. So therefore, Gurudev concluded that we can worship Giriraj as Girirani. And interestingly, there are so many devotees who heard that instruction and took to worshipping Girirani. But it's only really in Gurudev's Sangha that is performed, that type of worship is performed. Most people have never seen or contemplated Girirani. So that's just another point about Giriraj. So then
Maharaj, doesn't that make sense in terms of mercy? Because if he inverted commas is the most merciful, well, she is the most merciful. So it makes sense that he is, or Govardhan is. Radha.
Yes, nice point, Yashoda. Yes, like the highest Karuna Shakti actually is coming from Sri Radhika. This is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was able to distribute so much mercy, because he is the embodiment of Radha's moods and bhavs. That's what he was accessing. Therefore, that Audarya prem that Mahaprabhu was distributing was rooted from Sri Radhika. In fact, it was her compassion. So yes, nice point, Yashoda. Very nice indeed. That that this is why the gopis are petitioning Giriraj to give them mercy, to fulfill their desires, to dance with Brajendra Nandan Shri Krishna. So many descriptions like this of the sweetness and speciality in rasa of Giriraj Govardhan or Girirani. And we have that choice. It's not that, yes, it's locked in that this is Girirani. If someone has the vision to worship as Girirani, that is their perspective. If someone has the vision to worship as Bhagavan, Giriraj, that's their perspective, etc. So whatever is our personal adhikar and how we respond in that way. But this is how Gurudev has presented it to us, which is interesting to appreciate and just makes so much rational sense. How can there be two males in the caves of the confidential caves with the gopis? There can only be one. So, although, of course, we can say, yes, of course, Giriraj has three identities. Yes, we can worship as Bhagavan or as Haridasavarya or as Girirani. So they are all specialities of Giriraj. So the beauty, and one more point before I wind up, is that in Braj itself, amongst all the local Brijbasis today, many of them will have Thakurji of Radha and Krishna, and they will always have a Giriraj Shila. But it's the Giriraj Shila that actually takes prominence in the households. It's the Giriraj Shila that they offer all their boga to. It's the Giriraj Shila that they have more of a reciprocal relationship with. And this is a fact that actually Giriraj is described as being the tilak that adorns the place of Vrindavan. Giriraj is in the forest of Vrindavan. If we look at a map, I haven't got one to show you right now, but Vrindavan is shaped like a V-shaped. It comes up from the village of Vrindavan, or the township of Vrindavan today, and it opens up like this, and it encompasses Govardhan at the top. It looks like a funnel. And on one side, you have Madhuvan, Talvan, Bahulvan, Kamudvan, and then you have Vrindavan in the center with the crown of Giriraj at the very top. Physically, I'm talking about. If you looked from a drone picture, you would see that physically, Giriraj is like the crown, or the tilak, it's described. And then on the other side, you have Kamyavan, Kadirvan, and what's the last one? Kamyavan, Kadirvan, and there's one more there. Can't quite think of. Show us a picture, please. I don't have a picture in my pocket. No, Raghava has to draw it with his expertise on the. Raghava, you can do that. You can draw the forests.
Kadirvan.
I said Kadirvan and Kamyavan. So these two forests, yes, it's only these two forests that are on the other side, on the northern
on the other
side.
There are four on the other side.
Yeah, that's what I said. Bahulavan, Madhuvan, Talvan, and Kamudvan are on the southern side, and then you have Vrindavan in the center, with Govardhan physically as the crown. And then on the northern side, you have Kamyavan and you have Kadirvan on the northern side. So it's helpful for us to become familiar just with the geography of Braj. Then what will happen when you go to Braj, you will naturally feel more at home, because you know physically where each place is. It's not just a sea of confused forest, oh, this one, that one, don't really know where it's Arthur or Martha or whatever. It's all like a bit bewildering. But if you see it on a map and become familiar with this, Prabhus, is our home. This is our eternal home. This is non-different to the apricot lila, the apricot geography of Braj. This is where we are from. This is where Gurudev is bringing us home to, in Braj. So to become familiar with it doesn't take a lot of exercise, quite frankly. It just takes enthusiasm for this subject matter to become part of our being. We want to be in Vrindavan consciousness. So that means becoming familiar with the different aspects. Particularly today, we're talking about this most exceptional personality of Giriraj, this Hari Dasavarya, with so many amazing qualities of his giving everything to Krishna for Krishna's pleasure. The grasses, the water, the caves, the fruits, etc., for the cows, everything he's just giving. Hari Dasavarya. So this is the object of the gopis' worship. So while we're doing our parikrama, we can think with great honor and respect, this is the personality that the gopis consider to be the greatest bhakta of Krishna. So that will inspire us in our own devotion, and hearing all the different leelas of how Krishna curtailed the Indra sacrifice yagya, how, Indra devastated the rain, etc., and how Giriraj very easily, according to Krishna's desire, just allowed himself to be uprooted. Because remember the pastime when Hanumanji, he was the first to actually, or the second rather, to lift Giriraj. Pulasta Rishi was the first. He went to his father Dronachal and requested, can he please bring to Braj? And Dronachal said, it's up to Giriraj. So Giriraj, he agreed to come with Pulasta Rishi on the condition that he wouldn't put him down on the way, otherwise he'd just stay there. And we know the story that actually Pulastya Rishi put him down for a moment to attend to nature, and then he couldn't pick him up again. But later on, during Ram Leela, Hanumanji came to Giriraj and thought, oh, this is a great mountain, I'll pick him up for our bridge to Lanka. And he tried with all his strength to pick up Giriraj. He expanded his body. Hanuman could expand his body practically to reach the sun. With all his strength, he could not shift Giriraj 1 millimeter. So then he started to appreciate, oh, this is a very, very great personality. So then he circumambulated Giriraj. Then he came and offered many prayers in glorification of Giriraj. And then he actually had to tell Giriraj, I want you to serve Lord Ram and Sita in their pastimes by coming to help the bridge to Lanka. And Giriraj, his heart melts in hearing this Ramayan from the lotus lips of Hanumanji. And then someone's got their microphone on, it's echoing. And then Shoda. Yeah.
Yeah, I was sending the map around to everybody.
Okay. And then Giriraj agrees to come with Hanuman. And then there's an aerial voice proclaiming the bridge is already completed. We don't need any more rocks or mountains. So Hanuman, he had raised literally Giriraj a few millimeters off the ground in preparation to carry him. And he places him back down again and says, I don't need you anymore. Giriraj was mortified. He said, no, you can't leave me now. You know, I'm not going to allow you to go. You melted my heart. So Hanumanji has to go to Ram to find out how to pacify Giriraj. And then Ram says, don't worry. In my pastime as my Krishna incarnation, when I come as Brajendranandan Krishna, I will perform pastimes all over Giriraj's back. So then Giriraj became pacified. Okay, he could tolerate that, and he waited for Krishna to come. So it was 3 times that he was lifted. And when he was lifted by Krishna, by the way, if we read in Gopal Champu, underneath was a whole like township of houses, accommodation, pens for the cows. There was a beautiful like township there for the Brijbasis to comfortably reside for 7 days. And it's described by Jiva Goswami. They felt like it was not more than 7 hours. They felt like those 7 days was like 7 hours. They had a festival the entire time. Indra was just blown away. How come these people are trying to enjoy? I'm trying to kill them and they're all enjoying. So we get the whole consideration of the purification of Indra and the his pride being purified by that pastime. So many, many pastimes of Giriraj Govardhan. So we only have 15 minutes left. So if anyone wants to make a comment, Raghavaji, you have anything to comment about Govardhan? I will try and share a link here. Okay, 1 second.
Dandavats, Maharaj.
Dandavats, Prabhuji. Haribol, Haribol.
I don't really have much to say. Wait. But I had 2 pictures of Srila Prabhupada's, the content of his briefcase that he carried with him everywhere. And it so happens to be 2 beautiful Govardhan Shilas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm trying to...
Okay. Let's just go back. I want to look at the map that apparently has been produced.
I don't know how bona fide it is, because I cross-checked it with your description on day...
Let me check it. I'll tell you straight away.
Yeah,
if it's
it doesn't
correct
exactly
or not.
correspond.
What doesn't correspond then? What is the...
Well, I don't know. The list you gave on day 1 is slightly at odds with it, but you know much better than I do.
There's 5 forests on the eastern side. Bandiravan, Bhadravan, Vailvan, then Lohavan and Mahavan. And then there's the 7 forests on the western side. Madhuvan, Talvan, Kamudvan, Bahulavan, all in a group. Then there's Vrindavan, that's what I described, that funnel. And then there's Kadirvan and Kamyavan on the northern side. So that makes 7.
Kadirvan,
so
and what was the last one?
Kamyavan. Kamyavan is where Mother Yashoda is from.
Kamyavan is because on this one it has Kamyavan as slightly to the south of Kadirvan, but to the west.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to get the exact location, it's help. I'm just describing them generally, but when you get the map, you can be more focused on it. But our vision today is Giriraj Govardhan, and our prayer and our meditation is how much the gopis themselves, manifesting from Sri Radhika, are revering Giriraj Govardhan. And where does Sri Giriraj Govardhan come from? Some Shastras say that Giriraj is coming from the heart of Krishna. But Gurudev says, no, it's coming from the heart of Sri Radhika for the splendid pastimes that revolve around Giriraj. So he's like the centerpiece of Braj. And here we are in our beautiful temple of the Giridhari Gaudiya Math. And this place is where our Srila Gurudev performed his own personal bhajan. He took a time off from the Gaudiya Math at one point, and he came to meditate in a particular house that is right where we built our temple. And that's just a nice detail to appreciate. And that we do have such a beautiful temple there. Our Giridhari Gaudiya Math is very opulent, very comfortable. I can remember when we first opened it for all the Westerners to come, and we filled it with all green plants and stuff like this, and made a beautiful arrangement. I remember going to Mathura and purchasing something like 70 English pounds worth of pot plants to bring out and spread around, just to soften the concrete steps and the rest of it, you know. But the pinkish color of the building is very, very attractive. And now, of course, we have Gurudev's Samadhi, his Pushpa Samadhi, right in the middle of the lawn there. So that's an extremely attractive place that we can go to any season, any time of the year, and appreciate. It's like a safe place that Gurudev has made for us for posterity. At any time in the future, we will always be welcome. There's something special. I was fortunate to live in the township of Govardhan for maybe 3.5, almost 4 years. And it has a special, natural, incredibly friendly flavor. In Vrindavan, they're a little bit fried with the Westerners. They've seen them for 40, 50 years practically. And they know all the kinks and the rest of it that Westerners can get up to. But in Govardhan, they're a little bit more innocent on that. And they just have a totally open feeling of friendship. And again, it's different when you live in Radhakund. It's much more like Baba country. And it's kind of different. But Govardhan is the most friendliest, welcomest, warm place that I've ever been on the planet. It's just tremendous. It's peaceful. The intensity isn't as extreme as Radhakund, which Westerners can tolerate and handle. I'm surprised that more Westerners don't live in Govardhan. It's so filled with cows physically. You get the beautiful, beautiful cows all over Govardhan. Everywhere are cows, and unfortunately, monkeys. The monkeys have like tripled their population because they have no predators. And the Delhi people come down and they just feed them. And so there's no controlling them. And they can be quite intimidating because they demand, the pilgrims to give them whatever they've got in their bags. Otherwise, the monkeys will take it. So,
Maharaj, could you recommend to us a little program as we sit in some cases, lockdown houses on Sunday? What would be a nice program for really praying to Govardhan, but both for the positive, the Bhav Bhakti, and also for the taking away of our material desires?
I don't think we have to focus on the material desires really at all, because I said right at the very beginning of our conversation just now, today, that it's the positive alternative that will automatically take away those. It's like that beautiful verse that Shukadev Goswami, what is it? Vikriditam Brajavadu bi itam cha Vishnu, the last verse that he says in the Rasa Panchadhiya, that first we hear, then we have kirtan, and then we have remembrance come. This will, and then pure bhakti, that bhaktim param bhagavati labhya, that pure bhakti will rise in the heart automatically. If we hear first, if we take the positive. So the positive principle has to be prominent in our minds. If we read this Venu Gita, especially verse 18, or if you're fortunate enough to be able to find online, or you have a hard copy of the Gopal Champu, and also Ananda Vrindavan Champu. These are two most relishable books that we have in English that open out such a picture. Ananda Vrindavan Champu and Gopal Champu by Jiva Goswami. So these two books, especially Gopal Champu, which really open out the Leela completely and give us a direct image of the sweetness and greatness and magnanimity, you can say, of Giriraj.
Which parts, Maharaj, of each book?
You can see in the chapters, you can see in the indexes, it's clearly marked.
And Venu Geet, which verse do you say?
Verse 18. Verse 18.
Okay. Unfortunately, my Ananda Vrindavan Champu and Gopal Champu are both in storage, but perhaps I can find someone who can scan it for me. Okay.
Storage where?
In London. And what else would you do on Sunday, Maharaj, other than read those three?
You're talking about the Go Puja, because here it's Monday. On Monday is our Govardhan Puja and our Go Puja. So you can, what we used to do is, if we weren't in Govardhan, I can remember one year being in Varshana, and we had a huge table, and we made an exact replica of Giriraj out of halava. And we put all the kunds with sweet rices in it. And we decorated it very beautifully. And then we did Dandavat Parikrama around it just to get the full benefit of our Govardhan Parikrama. So you can do like this. You can even just make a little one if you haven't got a lot of energy to do a nice Dandavat Parikrama. Oh, he's saying we'll do Go Puja with the cows. Yes. So Raghava lives on a place in Connecticut, and they have a lot of beautiful cows. He sent me a picture. If you have an opportunity to put some, you make the haldi mix, the turmeric mix, and you put it on your hand, and you put the whole impression of your hand on the bodies of the cows. It's everything about Govardhan, as I said right in the beginning, is about festivity, joy. The heart by nature is filled with joy and song and dance. And this is what Giriraj Maharaj, Giriraj Govardhan, he manifests this atmosphere of complete happiness and joy and dance. And when you live in Vrindavan, in Govardhan, this is so obvious all the time. All the time there are yatris, pilgrims doing parikrama. There's never a moment, it's described, when there isn't at least one person circumambulating Giriraj Govardhan. There's always someone walking around. And so it takes a lot of energy, especially if it's your first time around. What is it about, I think in English miles, 17 miles right the way around? Do you remember, Madhu? It's approximately, I think it's about 9 miles around the bottom, is it? Or I can't remember.
Kilometers, I think.
17 kilometers.
22 kilometers, I think.
22 kilometers.
I think so, or 22 and a half or something like that, which is probably 16, 17 miles, isn't it?
But if you think it's 17 miles, you might get tired before you even start. But when you actually start it, it's so ecstatic, the atmosphere. When I stayed out there, so many devotees were every single day doing Govardhan Parikrama. And I was also appreciating that every time I was walking around Govardhan, there was no mental disturbance for me. There was no disturbance of any type at all. It was an opportunity to really take in the positive alternative of just like being on a rocket, being able to remember Krishna without any obstruction, that there was no interference in a sense of negativity coming in. It was just totally positive. So that's the power, that's the Shakti of Giriraj. He wants us to remember Krishna's pastimes. If that's our intention, then it'll be very easy to access this mood of Braj. But also the Brijbasis who are there locally, they all have this kind of very up-tempo mood about them. They're always very full of festive joy. So it's very
Which
sweet.
bhajans would you, any bhajans you would choose?
Well, there's of course the beautiful glorification of Radha Kund, and Shamakund, which is like the two eyes of Giriraj. So this Radha Kund Tata is a very inspiring song. And then
Radha
there's
Kund, what's slowly, Maharaj, so I can get, what's the first line?
Radha Kunda Tata Kunja.
Radha Kunda Tata, okay.
And then there's how does that first line go of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's? Vina Bhavatya Haridasya Variyama Hanavavashtika Matrideta Yameva Supremana Jesya Shri Govardhan Medishatam Vishna. Madhu, you remember this Vrindavan does Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur?
There's two Astakams, isn't there? There's that one, and then there's also the one by, is it Srila
Raghunath does.
Yes, Nija Nikatanya Vasamde Govardhan. So there's two.
Yes. So what's the first verse of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's?
They're quite easy to find. I can't remember the first. I haven't got the song.
Madhuvrat Das in Germany. What's the first line of the first verse of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's? Just tell me the first line and then I remember it.
Maharaj, I've just found the one of Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. The other one, I have to look it up for you. Just a minute.
Okay.
What's the what's the melody of the Radha Kund?
You're asking me a lot of hard questions for me. I mean, I don't sing all these all the time. I'm sweating here. That's it. Krishna Prasadena Namasta Shila Samasrijantam.
Krishna what?
Krishna Prasadena Namasta Shila Samrijam Apnoti Chavaronyapi Sakrasya Yarparpa Balimsha Sakshat Govardhano Medishatam Vishtam Vina Bhavat Kim Haridasya Varya Mahanavavashtika Matridita Yameva Supremana Deshya Shrina Govardhana, etc. But each time at the end of that verse, it's also referencing Haridasa Varya. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is tuning in to that mood by the gopis.
That's great.
So there's
we've got
two
bhajans,
astakams,
3 readings,
yeah,
and a pepi
and what else do you want, Yashoda?
Yeah, no, that's my Sunday sorted.
Very greedy.
Be greedy, yes.
Yeah, we're greedy, Maharaj. We're greedy.
We need it.
Want it.
We need it. We need it. We need
we
it.
Want it. Yeah.
And
no, that's
find a little picture of a cow, because always the cows are symbolic of Giriraj, because he gives protection to the cows. You know, he's the savior of the cows. The cows are very Krishna loves the cows. You know, it's a prominent feature.
I should add that Sudevi and Kishori, if you want to make a donation, they're feeding all the local bridge buses in Govardhan, you know, the kids, and they're doing puja out at Govardhan. So if you send Kishori, you know, even a $5 or something, and let them know, and they'll make prayers for you, and they can, it will literally go from their hand to the mouth of one of the kids.
What's really wonderful about the cows in particular is that they're always greedy for anything you offer them. If you offer them some nice grass or a laddu or some gore, they'll come and they'll lick your arm off trying to get the whole thing, which is always really, you know, loving. They are so loving, you know, all of the cows. I never met a single cow that wasn't loving in Govardhan. You can embrace them, you can hug them, and they'll just start, you know, letting you know that they appreciate your hug, you know, and so the cows make up the backdrop of Giri Govardhan, you know, so it's all connected. And this is Krishna. It all comes alive. You've got the cows, you've got Govardhan, you've got the song, you've got the festive atmosphere. This is this is why Giriraj is Haridasa Varya. He's kept it. It's one of the, of course, when we go to Nandagaon, there's a special flavor there. In Varshana, it's a special flavor there. I think I described the other day how each place has its individual, unique quality and speciality. So tuning into Giriraj is a wonderful meditation. Okay, I'm done. I think that's the end of our time.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. That was beautiful. That propels us perfectly into Sunday.
Okay.
We're going to embrace that with both, well, all 4 arms. I mean, all 2 arms. So reminder, everybody, tomorrow, 6 o'clock, Sripad Bhaktivedanta Bhagavad Maharaj. And also a little reminder, Sunday, we got a Sunday feast actually, because we've got the glorification of Gurudev 12 till 2 UK time, and then straight after that we've got Her Grace Srimati Shamrani Didi at 2 o'clock UK time, so back to back. Yoshinari, are we going to be in different Zoom rooms? Do we switch Zoom rooms?
Yeah, we're going to have to, because there's some devotees that aren't on one
group
that are not on the other.
We'll come out of one Zoom into another. That should be hilarious. Okay, that's great. Beautiful. Tarudi Didi, our sweet sister in Wales, is going to sing Dhammarastakam for us again.
Great. She sings really nicely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj. Beautiful class. Really appreciate. Okay. Srila Gurudeva ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. She's such a Ratmuni ki jai. Nama Vishwaram Satchidananda Rupam Lasat Kandalam Gokule Brajamanam Dyashoda Viyulukhalatavamanam Param Rishtamadhyanta Todrujagopya Vrudantamohoneja Yugmam Rijantam Karam Bhoja Yugmena Satanganejam Mohoshrasakam Pajirekangaganda Stita Graivadamodaram Bhaktipadham Iti Driksvalila Pirananda Kunde Swagosham Nimajantam Magyapayantam Tadiyeshita Geshu Bhakte Jitatam Puna Primatastam Shata Vritivande Varam Deva Moksham Na Moksha Vadhim Va Nachanyam Prineham Vade Sharapiha Idam Deva Purnata Gopala Balam Sada Mimanasya Virastam Kimanyai Idam Te Mukam Bojam Avyaktanile Vritam Kundale Snigdharaktisha Gopya Muhushchambitam Bimbairaktadharam Me Manasya Virastamalam Lakshalapai Namo Devatamo Dairananta Vishnu Prasida Prabhotu Kajalapti Makam Kripa Drishti Vrityati Dinambatanu Griha Nishamama Gyamedi Akshidrisha Kuverat Marjo Badhar Murjaiva Yadvat Twaya Mochito Bhakti Parjokrito Cha Tata Prima Bhaktim Swagam Me Prayascha Namokshigraho Me Stita Modareha Namaste Stutamne Spuradiptitamne Tvadiyodarayata Vishwasyatamne Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaye Namo Nandalilaya Devaya Tubhyam Namo Radhikaya Tvadiya Priyaye Namo Nandalilaya Devaya Tubhyam Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ramo Hare Ramo 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara, Radha Damodara Shri Radhe Jaya, Giriraja Jaya, Govardhana Jaya, Giriraja Jaya, Govardhana. Gurudev, Gurudev, Gurudev Jaya Jaya, Gurudev Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Jai Shri Gaura Premanande, Hari Haribo.
Beautiful.